Today I've had to bring my runaway mind back several times, as it was taking me straight to anxiety and fear again, running through all the potential scenarios it was showing me. Basically, how things could go wrong. Thanks, ego. You see, I'm in the middle of learning some huge lessons about surrender. I've been learning about this for a while now, but we've moved on to a higher level, because right now it's all about leaps of faith. And while I'm thrilled to have graduated and progressed to this level, it's bringing up fear and anxiety again. The good news is, after all the healing work I've done in the past couple years, I'm much more equipped to deal with it. But it's still taking me some time to work through it, as there seem to be layers, and I'm hoping we're getting to the final layers. But I wanted to talk a bit today about surrender, because I'm seeing things through a whole new lens as I take it to a deeper level. So let's talk about surrender and how that plays into the big picture of manifesting the life of your dreams. Welcome to the podcast. Welcome to the Alchemy of Manifestation podcast. I'm Jen Tammy at the Wheelhouse Project, and we are going to talk about how that sweet heart of yours is going to help you create the life of your dreams. So when you look surrender up in the dictionary, it says, cease resistance to an enemy or opponent and submit to their authority, which is not at all helpful here. That's not what I mean. There was another spot that I found online that defined spiritual surrender as a believer completely gives up his own will and subjects his thoughts, ideas, and deeds to the will and teachings of a higher power. And while this is better, it's still not accurate, because what I'm talking about here is definitely spiritual surrender, but you don't give up anything. You simply allow God to drive the car, God to create the magic, God to show you the best possible direction to go. And really, God has been doing that all along to some extent. It's just a matter of starting to pay better attention to what you're being shown and understanding what you're being taught and being open and willing to follow that path that God is leading you to. It's about following your divine guidance. This is not about submission. It's actually more about empowerment when you work with God. This is about co-creating with God willingly and happily, knowing it will lead you on the perfect path for you. God gave you free will for a reason. You're here to create as well as to surrender. Confusing? We'll talk more about this in a bit, but you always have free will. I believe that we come into each lifetime with no memory of God or the spiritual realms for a reason. It's to teach us to find our way home in the most tough love way sometimes. It is upon us to find our own faith. It is upon us to find God's love within our own hearts. It is upon us to find our way back to knowing that God is the one who always has our backs and trusting that. It's about the evolution of our souls through many lifetimes here, finding our way out of misery and back into the arms of God, who is always waiting for us, always loving us, and always ready to welcome us back. We were given an ego mind to challenge us as we go. It is the main challenge in this journey through our human lifetimes. Because really, if we can learn to manage it, to stop judging us, stop filling us with fearful thoughts and reminding us of old beliefs, and to stop telling us we are unworthy and unlovable, then we can finally have some peace. Mind you, there will also be some healing to do. But calming and quieting the ego mind is a huge step you need to take on your journey. This can be done in many ways, from hypnotherapy, affirmations, meditation, or just doing things in a rather meditative way for us, like cooking, yoga, reading, walking. Even prayer can be helpful. The list is endless, really. Different things work for different people. Some people wish they could just turn their brain off sometimes, but really, it does have a purpose too. It is where you can visualize your beautiful future, create amazing ideas, and really, it's actually a way that the divine can communicate and speak to you and through you. I talk about the fact that I get downloads from my guides all the time. I know that when I'm doing something mindless and a huge idea comes through in detail quickly, it's from the divine. But many people believe it's just an idea and dismiss it as that, or judge it, as your own. But often the voice in your head is not yours. Actually, Elizabeth Gilbert talks about this in her book, Big Magic. So if you're curious about this, she describes it really beautifully in there. And I know it feels like I'm getting off on a tangent a little bit here, but let me talk about this just a bit more, because really the mind is the biggest thing that must be managed when we talk about spiritual surrender. Between the letting go of your own mental chatter and the allowing in of the divine and the recognition of it as such, it's a place where you will also receive telepathic communications, whether you realize it or not. While all that chatter in your brain may sound like the same thing to you, and you may think it's all coming from you, it's not. The problem is that it's hard to decipher sometimes where and who it came from. I have to laugh when I say this too, because we have a huge disadvantage in the animal kingdom not realizing this. For example, I have had occasions when I suddenly think out of the blue that I should take the dogs to the dog park. When I look up, they're both waiting by the door to go. They put the idea in my head. It was them, not me. When I check back in with myself, I'm like, is that what I wanted to do today? Nope, it was them. Funny, but true. They plant ideas in our heads all the time. We just aren't always wise enough to recognize it and think it was our own. The really important times to recognize it, though, is when it's coming from the divine. God, your guides, your divine team, because they are trying to impart something important to you, trying to inspire you, guide you, enlighten you. Usually they do it in times when our minds are quiet or doing a relatively mindless task like showering, cooking, or washing your face. That's when you may get a download, or a sudden idea comes in, or maybe an epiphany about something, or you just suddenly see the right thing to do, the right answer, or have complete clarity on something in your life. That's divine. That's not you. You have just been gifted with divine guidance. Okay, back to surrender. Let's talk about the fact that you are always being guided and led on this journey back to God and your best life, should you choose to take that journey. And let me just say that you will eventually have to take it. If not in this lifetime, in the next, or the next. Whenever your soul is ready to see that suffering is only there to grow you and teach you to rise up and reach for God again, to find your faith in knowing that you are worthy of better, remembering that you are loved and seeing the light again. The fact of the matter is, when you start to see things from a higher perspective, you will see that nothing in your life is by accident. Everything is molding you, shaping you, and helping you to be exactly who you came here to be in this lifetime, and for your purpose. I just took Simon Sinek's class on finding your why. If you haven't seen his TED Talk on it, it's a must watch. But what it comes down to is that your why statement is about who you are and why you're here, and what impact you want to make on the world. And it comes from all your stories in your life, of when you rose up or when others inspired you. It's about who you were molded to be in this lifetime through all your experiences, and really, it's the positive ones, the ones where you became passionate about something, overcame something in your life, or when others inspired you in a big way. Our challenges were all there to help us to rise and lead us to our life's purpose. So where does surrender come into this? So you have experiences, challenges, and struggles to help you to rise above, to inspire you to heal, love yourself, and find your faith again. And on that journey, you will align and open your heart and reprogram your brain to the new beliefs and a calmer and more faith-filled state. And really, this is when you should be at the highest level of surrender. But that said, surrender can begin at any point and should. I just want to qualify this with the fact that surrender may also mean allowing challenging things to happen and being shown the lessons that it's teaching you. So surrendering to the lessons, learning, finding clarity, and moving forward in a new way. But the lessons will be much less painful than when you're not surrendered, that's for sure. Let's talk about it a bit further. So surrender isn't easy, we know that. At least for most of us, it's not. Because it may not take you where you expect to go. While God will always honor your wishes and desires if they align with your purpose and path, God will take you down the best path for you always. The one you came here to live, based on the agreements you signed off on before you started this lifetime. But the qualifier here is that there may be stops along the way on your journey that you don't expect. and you have to let go and allow them to happen. But they are necessary steps to get you where you want to go. And I assure you that there will be lessons, as well as magic, every step of the way. The only way you can truly live your best life and check off your whole to-do list you set for yourself is through surrender, is following your guidance, your intuition, which is just another way the divine communicates with you, and your own heart, which is God's love. Your ego mind won't get you there. All those old fears and doubts won't get you there, but surrender will. I want to talk about the journey of surrender, of taking divinely guided action. So I have been working to really surrender to God for several years now. About 3 years ago, I was strongly guided to move out of a house I had lived in for 8 years. I was getting the nudges, thoughts coming in about it during quiet times, and I was shown where I needed to go. I felt like someone turned my head to show me when I drove by one day. And when I felt resistant, they threw me a few curveballs to make me want to leave the house. Oh, how creative our guides can get. A squirrel in the walls, mice in my basement, and a leaky roof. Yep, they were going to get me out of that house one way or another. So I gave in and moved to the apartment they showed me. And mind you, it was not ideal in any way. I moved into an apartment that literally made me sick. It was a horrible, busy location, and my introverted self didn't like it at all. And it was all just a rather messy situation. There was even a workplace shooting across the street the day after I moved in. It was all meant to stress me out and cause me to have a complete breakdown one day. But breakdowns are breakthroughs. That was really why I was taken to this apartment. It's totally clear to me now. It was a wake-up call, a shakedown, part of that divine call to come back to God, to wake up to my journey and want better for myself, to inspire me to action. And after that, everything started to look up. I was guided to a great new apartment within a week of that and was easily let out of my lease. I was given lots of wonderful, inspiring information about my future, too, when I was guided to have a reading with an intuitive. Life started to look up and move forward for me, but I needed to surrender and allow that shakedown to happen. Surrender is amazing, though. It is the way to all the good in our lives. And really, even though my old apartment and the breakdown wasn't fun, it was good. It got me back on my path and out of my old stuck comfort zone, because I know I was resisting my guidance for a long time before that, and life wasn't pretty. The fact is, when we wrestle with God, we remain stuck. When we live in fear and the pain and the victim mentality, we can't move forward as easily. God will certainly try and help you, nudge you, and even make you more uncomfortable if needed. But some people will just accept that the suffering and the misery is part of their unworthiness, rather than see that they're being pushed onto their path. The secret is to wake up to your guidance, to see the lessons you're being taught, and to give it all to God. Because everything is part of your path. Everything is happening for a reason. And I'm not just talking about the big stuff here. I'm also talking about getting delayed in traffic, someone rescheduling an appointment with you, or bumping into someone unexpectedly. There is a reason for all of it, for everything. Whether it's keeping you safe, guiding you, or opening you to something entirely different but better for you, it's all happening for a reason. That's why even when there are annoying delays or challenging days, you need to give thanks for them. Relax and breathe through it. Because even though you have no idea why it's happening, there is always a reason. That is part of surrender. Stop pushing the flow. Stop getting annoyed. Stop trying to force something. And instead, trust that things will happen in a divinely perfect way. All you need to do is follow the flow, see where it takes you, and always follow your divine guidance. The fact of the matter is, though, that creating the life you want is really a beautiful balance between surrender and heart-centered action. Visualizing what you want, believing it will happen, letting go, and letting yourself be guided. It's a beautiful journey if you allow it in. Fighting against the flow of where you need to go and trying to control things will only lead you to frustration and heartache. But if you can allow yourself to release that control and trust that everything will happen in a divinely perfect way. It will. All you need to do is have a future vision of what you want and how you want to feel, and then release that in faith to God. Mind you, even your perfect, surrendered, and divinely guided path will have lots of lessons and speed bumps along the way, because we are always here to learn and grow. But if you can let go and see it all more clearly, you will more quickly align with the right steps in your life and see what action you need to take. And the reason I said heart-centered action earlier is because what is authentic and in alignment with us in our lives all comes from the heart, comes from our love of ourselves and the divine. When that comes into alignment with all of our actions we take in our life, our most beautiful dreams and visions can take shape. You just have to trust that God is leading you there and allow God to take the wheel. If you've been a stressed out, anxious, fear-motivated person, there's nothing better you could strive for than surrender. It is the peace you have always searched for. It's taking your white-knuckled hands off that wheel once and for all and unclenching. It's finally seeing that you never actually had control, and you might as well relax because God's got you. You were just fighting against it, and that's why things were such a mess at times. You were being taught to let go. So why don't you try? Start to pay attention to what you're being guided to or move away from and follow accordingly. I have a funny example of this one. I was looking at jobs on a website, and a few of the jobs I looked at I applied for. But one in particular, I opened up to read the description, and the whole computer screen went fuzzy and started shaking to the point that I couldn't read it. When I went back to the search menu, it was fine again. Now, I know my guidance well enough to know my guides were like, nope, not that one. Don't even read it. That's not for you. But it's true. Most would be baffled and frustrated by this. But I knew right away, don't apply to that one. But that's what happens with surrender. You start to work with your divine guides. You see that they've always got you. They may still give you options because we have free will, and they will always nudge you in the right direction, but it's up to you to decide to follow. For example, there were several jobs on that particular website that interested me and I applied for, but in the next few days, my guides sent me messages to think about what success means to me and to remember how important peace is over stress. So they had me thinking about what was right for me so I could make the right decision on my own. But I've also had lots of times they've distracted me with my dog, a phone call, or something else to stop me from doing something that I later would have realized was the wrong thing to do, i.e. send a certain email, make a certain call, etc. I trust that everything is guidance. Everything is moving me to where I need to go. I just have to relax and trust and to not get annoyed by every little thing because it's all part of that guidance and plan and requires me to surrender and follow what they have for me in the moment. In other words, taking the dogs out or answering that phone call. I see the divine perfection in most things after the fact, but in the moment, it can feel like just an annoyance. But that's surrender. You won't always understand where you're being led and why, but you have to trust. Because you will see the divine perfection in all of it later, and you will be led to your best and most amazing life. One final note. I have to tell you that I also surrender when I prepare the materials for my podcast or write my blogs, or really do anything for my business especially, but also in my life now. Because it's amazing to me what happens. For example, I learn something new with every bit of content I put out here. I'm being taught as my fingers go across the keyboard or words come out of my mouth. It's not always from me. It's from the divine. It's being channeled through me because I'm surrendered in that way as well. It's actually pretty funny to me when I read something back and I have to look up the words because I didn't write it and I don't know what they mean. I mean, I wrote it, but some of it clearly came from the divine and not me. I also have aha moments with some of it, as the concepts are new to me too. But to me, that's how beautiful surrender is. If you allow God to work through you, you become the channel. Whether that's through writing, a conversation, a speech, a business, a work of art, God comes through us when we're surrendered and in the flow with an even higher and better version to lift you and the others around you, filled with divine love. Thank you for joining me on the podcast today. Please subscribe to the podcast and check out all of our other resources, videos, blogs, and more at thewheelhouseproject.com. Remember to sign up for our email list while you're there. And also check us out at The Wheelhouse Project on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and Pinterest.